Many Axial drivers have been patiently waiting for a new 110 scale rig. Who am I kidding? You guys were not patient about it. You were really vocal that you wanted something new from the brand, and it's here. It's finally here, and it was really worth the wait. Meet the new SCX10 Pro, a build kit designed specifically for comps or those who like high-end performance rigs. Now, here's where I go and jump into talking about the body and the wheels and the tires and such, but this is a kit. You have to buy all of that separate. So this cliffhanger body that's on it, that does not come with it. The wheels and tires you see here from Proline, those don't come on here either. We're gonna jump right into talking about the chassis. Look at this thing, guys. It is all new. There's just a few parts carried over from the other vehicles. From what I could tell, this is actually one of Axial's R&D samples that they sent over, so I could check it out, show it to you guys. I didn't get to build this myself, but I'm going to do my best to show you all of its new features. And we'll start off with the frame itself. This is a twin aluminum plate frame set, and there is a ton of adjustability on these plates. Lots of shock mounting positions, lots of rear link positions, even link points for the front lower links. If we come down below here, we could see that they angled the skid plate 3.8 degrees, which gives you better clearance. And here you can see all of the extra holes that they have for the mounting points. And then they have these new side plates where you mount the electronics. They have these skid panels that could be removed, and the battery locates right here on one of these sideboards. Now, this does look like a small area to some. That is so you could go use about a 1300 milliamp 3S Spectrum pack. I already fit one in there, and that's what seems to work. But this is a really great looking chassis. I like the new cross braces that they have throughout this. Much more substantial front bumper mount, same mount out in the rear. They have this new cross section in the center, another support back here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Motor mount. That's kind of part of the chassis assembly. And then let's go into the bumpers. They've got these mini bumpers with the front has a stinger and a fair lead opening. So if you want to go throw a winch on this, you can. You could do that on this upper plate. And this upper plate actually also allows you to go and do a chassis mounted servo setup. And that means that there's a few things that you would have to do with the links, but all the parts are included in the kit to do that. And I'll talk more about the steering in a little bit. The body mounts, as you can see, low profile. You're just gonna drop the body way down on these things to keep everything low. And so they just give you these short body mounts in the kit. Next up, let's talk about the suspension. And you've probably been eyeing these shocks on here. These are completely redesigned shocks. They did their best to stop any leaking whatsoever. They really paid attention to the seals from what they told me. And then as you could see, they also went and used a mini spring on them, so you have plenty of clearance on it. It's a nice narrow shock, hard anodized aluminum, metal pivot balls top and bottom. You could go and use mini T rear springs if you do want to go and adjust spring tension on this. It comes with red springs from the factory, Axial springs, but mini T rear springs will work on this setup. Now I'm going to flip it over so you can see the links. It's a 4-link setup in the front because we have a axle mounted servo. Really neat how they go and attach the front links. They've got this large servo plate that also acts as the link mounts in the front, and then it goes to the chassis for the upper link, and then the lower links are pretty standard in the front, but in the rear they're bent links, so you get more of that clearance. So you got the right setup right from the factory for competition use. All of the ball studs are metal. They got the heavy duty rod ends here, so it looks like a really good setup. Dual shear on the axle for the links, and then the shocks just mount on the outside. And it's really unique how they mount these to the axles. We'll talk about the axles in a minute, but I want to go on to the transmission on this thing. Check this out, a lot different from anything that we've seen before from Axial. The transmission is a really low profile setup. They tried to keep the weight down low on this. You can see the motor is mounted off to the side, down low on this composite plate. The spur gear is just mounted to a fixed spur gear adapter, no slipper clutch in there. And then it's ball bearing supported over to a CV drive shaft that goes down to the transmission. They've got aluminum supports here to keep everything in line so it doesn't twist or turn. It's a really rigid setup. But when we get down to the transmission, all metal gears on the inside, ball bearings of course, and then you could shift this transmission. So it's set up with a 1-to-1 system, and then you could go and underdrive the rear 40% if you want with this shift lever right here. And as you see, it's got a lockout. So you could go and adjust where you have the shift arm. You remove this little body clip, you can move it forward, you can move it back. depending on if you want that 1-to-1 ratio or if you want that 40% underdrive in the rear. And then for those that are building a high performance trail rig, you can go and remove this adapter block, put a mini servo in there and shift it so you can take advantage of the transmission when you're out on the trail. Pretty impressed with how everything looked on the inside. The one concern was the way it mounts to the skid plate here, which I forgot to mention, nice flat skid plate. But as you can see, the transmission kind of drops down in the front and rear and actually has screws coming in from the front and back to secure it. My only concern with that is maintenance wise, it is a little bit of a hassle to access quickly. It's just some extra screws or small 2.5s, but my only gripe is with that. Otherwise, I really like this transmission setup. Here's some wild bore drive shafts. Those are some parts that are carried over, the metal yokes, but we know that these work really well. Now let's get on to the axles. Check this out, guys. This is pretty cool, a steel tube axle setup. These are the AR45 Pro axles. These are steel tubes front and rear. The front pumpkin is offset, the rear is in the center, and then these steel tubes are tapped, so all of the link points and then the C-hubs in the front and the caps in the rear are all screwed into place. They're not going to move. Ball bearings on the inside. They have their machine cut gears, helical cut with the high pinion setup. So everything you would want in a comp crawler, and then universal axles on the outside. So you just get that maximum steering angle on this. And then the steering knuckles are the nice stout dual shear composite plastic hubs, ball bearings on the inside, and similar to what we've seen before. But overall, that's an impressive looking axle. And while we're up front here, check out the steering. That's where the servo mounts down low. You've got the big servo plate there that again is part of the 4-link. Then we've got metal steering links, and it looks like they're going to include a metal servo horn. But this rig is looking really sick. Check out the articulation on that. Love the way it feels. And then the electronics in here, these are Spectrum electronics. Again, you're gonna have to go pick those up on your own. I'll have links to all this stuff that was used in this particular kit down in the description below. All right, guys, I actually got the go to drive their sample kit here, so I'm gonna head up to RC Madness and we'll see how it performs. Well, I just had to take the Pro up to RC Madness in Enfield, Connecticut to their outdoor course because it's the perfect spot to test this. And I've been driving it for probably about 20 minutes now, and I'm absolutely loving it. So right now I have the transmission set up so the rear has the 40% underdrive, and it's really helping the Pro crawl through some of these rock obstacles. Then I could always go shift that to the one-to-one position in case I want to go trailing with it, which makes it a really versatile truck. There's lots of steering angle on this truck. It turns really well. There's a really tight passer here. I come up and over the bridge, keep the wheels cranked, maybe hook a wheel so I could just spin it around a little bit more to get through this underpass here. You know, I'm not a comp driver, but I do like driving a performance rig, and this SCX10 Pro is really impressive. Wow. The Pro is absolutely amazing. Axial did an incredible job creating this competition level platform that I think drivers are going to love. It has everything that they need to compete. And for those of us like me that like a performance rig on the trail, I think this is going to blow your minds. It just hugged the rocks up at madness. It was pretty impressive how much of an angle I could get this thing on before it would roll over. And I can only imagine when you throw some brass on here, it's just going to be stuck even more. Tons of steering, just the way the rig handles pivoting through the turns with that rear underdrive, just kind of sucking the rear end down and pulling the front. It's just dialed into the lines. And then the articulation, I mean, it just conforms over the rocks. It just looks so good out there. No problem whatsoever with approach or descent angles because the bumpers are tucked in. A little bit of tire rub, but that was my fault. So I need to trim it a little bit more. But, you know, it's got this low CG that just keeps it down low, just a total blast to drive. I mean, that's just the best way to put it. Axial nailed it on this one. I don't think anybody's got to have any complaints. This is the perfect way to get into comp crawling if you've been thinking about building your own, and I've actually been thinking about building one. It's taken me a long time to figure out what I was going to buy to build one, but now I just could get one of these.